My name is Marlene Gilson and I'm a traditional owner and Wathaurong elder. I started painting, I had an illness and I wasn't allowed to do anything. I sat in this damn chair for 10 months and when I had finished with that chair, I threw it down the tip. I said, I never want to see it again. And I had to find something to do, otherwise I would have gone crazy. So my husband cut me out all these little houses, and that was my first art project, was a village. Then I made 5 villages for my grandchildren for their Thomas the Tank sets. And then after that, when I got a little bit better, Deanne brought me out a canvas and she said, here Mum, paint on it. I said, I don't know how to paint on the damn canvas. So she gave me a few lessons and that's how it all began. When Deanne said Mummy had rung her from the Biennale and said, would your mum go in the Biennale? I said, tell them I'm too busy, I don't have time. And I didn't know what a Biennale was, and then when they looked it up and showed me what it was, she said it was so important. So now I'm here and I can get my stories across, because what happened, how I started to paint these stories is that the history books stated that there were no existing Wathaurong, that they'd all been wiped out, you know, like with the poisoned flower or the poisoned water and massacred. But that wasn't true. There were 3 remaining Wathaurong, and one was my great-grandfather, and he went to Warrnambool and married an Irish school teacher, governess, and then they had 7 children, and one of them was my grandmother. She had 13 children, so she really contributed to our survival. Because there's now like about 430 Wathaurong remaining in all of Australia. When we used to go to the beach, she'd teach me all these patterns and things. Once I went to learn to do weaving and I said, I've already done this. My grandmother had showed me how to do that, but it never sunk in. I was only about 10 and I wasn't interested anyway, you know. But I wish I had listened more to her and learnt more off her, but I did learn a lot of the stories. And one of the stories was that her grandfather was at the Eureka Stockade, and when the battle raged in the stockade, they minded some of the miners' children in the bush, you know, while the fighting was going on. So that was when I started to paint all these stories. I have a lot of books, I always have read a lot. And I found a lot of stories that my grandmother had told me and I started to paint them. I had a few little people in them and then I called these paintings my little people. And then I thought, I really like doing all this. It does take a long time to do them. There's like 4 coats of paint just on the face, and the brown bodies, you've got to have about 4 or 5 coats of paint because otherwise it's not right. But you know, they did take a while. And the Lal Falls one, that took me 5 months. That story is about the race meeting at Lal Falls, and every New Year's Day they held a race meeting there, and people would come from everywhere, and the new rail line had just been opened from Melbourne to Ballarat, from Ballarat to Geelong and to Melbourne, and people came on the steam train or horse and cart or bikes, any way they could get there, they went to the race meeting. And they used to have like 35,000 people attend this race meeting, and I weren't going to paint 35,000 people. That's such a sacred place. And you see the eagles in the sky. There's a story, the creation story, that's the end of the creation story, where Bunjil, after he had created man, men, women, language, laws, animals, and, you know, the Kulin nation, he went to Lal Falls and he became tired and he got the crow to blow him into the sky, and the crow blew him, Bunjil and his family, into the sky, where they now look down at the world as stars. There's a story like of the Southern Cross, that's another story, and it's Orion, You know, and that's a consolation of the stars, and that's Bunjil and his family and his brothers and sisters. So that place is a sacred place. Even today, there are scarred trees, birthing trees, and they're so big inside. We went inside and they're huge. And there's scatter sites and artefact sites still there. You'll notice a lot of the time I put the eagle and the crow in my paintings, and now it's got to the stage people look for the crow. I like to paint the goldfields. I love the goldfields because I live in Ballarat, and I accidentally found Jones's Circus at Eureka. That's our people that were advertised for Aboriginal boys to become circus performers. And the Sydney one, the convicts are there digging out the sandstone, and that's still there today at the end of the harbour there, and you go underground. Those marks are still there, what the convicts put there all them years ago to divert the water. Life on the goldfields was made up of lots of different nationalities on the goldfields, and the Irish became potato farmers, and still today they are potato farmers. Now the what if one, that was, what if we had gone to England and stuck a flag in their ground? Would we own their country? That's virtually what happened to Australia. Captain Cook came here and stuck a flag in Possession Island is where he first landed, and that was 18 months before Captain Arthur Phillip came out here. So it makes you think, what if you had to turn left instead of right? Or what if you went down the hill instead of up the hill? What if you hadn't gone in that door and gone in another door? What if I had not have got sick, and what if I hadn't have started painting? I wouldn't have known I could do this, you know.